Hey everyone, it is now 2019, brand new year, lots of new exciting stuff coming up, such as the Rutherford Manor novel. And I'm sure if you've been following on social media and the blog, I've been talking a lot about that and lots of exciting stuff for that coming down the pipeline. But we also start a brand new year of flash fiction. Last year was a lot of fun because I got to launch the thing for the first time and really kind of figure out where the flash fiction was going to go, experiment new genres and writing styles. This year I want to keep pushing it because it is a kind of a playground of experimental writing and transmedia storytelling with the narrative and the ambient music and the artwork. I want to keep playing off of that theme, but going to try and make longer stories. This first one we're going to look at is a end-of-the-world apocalyptic kind of theme that came to me in a dream. And I figured it'd be best told through several short stories rather than just a single one. And it is called Listen to Me. And this is part one of the story. Clicking of keyboards, ringing of phones, and working machinery filled the room. Stacks of paper and large commercial printers were in the back room behind the lobby. Beeping from the front door came every quarter of an hour or so as customers entered and left the shop. The busy season, summer, had begun. Every individual was looking to get their posters made, wedding invitations prepared, or other small side projects done. The bigger corporate cheeses were looking for trade show displays, brochures, and booklets. It was a lot for everyone to keep up with at the shop. It also didn't help that they were understaffed. A lady let out a sigh while staring at the computer screen. There was a graphic software open with a business card photo and some basic shapes over top of it. "Still tracing that logo?" called a man from the other end of the room. His puffy, black frizzy hair bounced as he turned to face the lady. The lady looked behind her and put on a close smile. She knew the man. Craig was his name. He liked to start small chat, something that she found she was not too fond of. She just wanted to get the job done and go home. The man sipped on his coffee, creating slurping noises. Then there was silence. The lady turned back to her desk and eyed her business card holder, keeping her cards neatly angled upwards. Having cards was flattering. It made her look like some sort of professional. At the same time, the card design itself was hideous, making her feel incompetent at her profession. How I would love to fix up that typeface. That coloring. Awful. The logo needs work too, she thought, eyeing the Megaspeed print logo just above her full name, Janet Harkovich. Her title, graphic designer, was just below her name. Perhaps one day she could convince her boss that their whole visual communication needed improvement. Then she could have a decent portfolio piece and get out of this dead-end print job. Janet could apply to a design studio and take on some actual challenging projects. Until then, she was stuck tracing another designer's work, tracing it from a photo nonetheless. A monkey's job. High heels clicked as a shorter, middle-aged woman came into the office from the front lobby. Candace, part owner of Megaspeed Print. She looked at the mounted TV at the far corner of the room. "You getting a look at this?" came her raspy voice. "What do you mean? On the telly?" asked Craig, adjusting his thick-framed glasses. "That's what I'm saying," Candace said. "It's completely bonkers. Look." Janet and Craig gazed up at the TV to see the news channel had a reporter and cameraman riding on a helicopter, overlooking the streets below. Cars were crashed into one another on the road. Civilians lay on the ground. The pavement was littered with random debris. The people were able to move, were running in all directions. The TV was muted, but subtext was typed out and the reporter talked, saying, "There are hundreds of people moving in a panic here in downtown London." "My God," Janet said, wide-eyed. "It's like out of a movie or something." "What is happening?" Craig asked. Candace pointed at the TV, saying, "That." Several people walked calmly down the road as civilians hurried away from them, like fish trying to escape a whale. There was a man and two women. All were wearing common clothes, jeans, t-shirts, blouses, nothing obscure. The three had single hands extended outwards, pointing in the general direction of the crowd. Blood ran from their fingers, drizzling down their skin and onto the pavement. They had blank stares on their faces, eyes completely white. "Where are their pupils?" Craig asked. We continue to follow the three figures that were reported merely minutes ago. They seem to be following the mass crowds, causing chaos from their presence. What are they? Terrorists? Craig asked. I don't think so, Candace said. They just seem to be walking down the street. A man on the TV dashed out from behind a wrecked car, holding the hand of a lady, trying to get by the three that were slowly approaching. As a single unit, the three stood still while moving their extended hands, palm upward, towards the man until their hands aligned with him. The man stopped dead in his tracks. His hands began to shake, then his head. The lady tugged on the man's arm, trying to get him to move with her. She shook her head as she cried, tugging on him with all her might. The man didn't budge. It was as if he were glued to the ground. What is wrong with him? Janet asked, watching in disbelief. This isn't like anything natural, she thought. She blinked twice, seeing if she was still in control of the situation. She had pretty realistic dreams in the past and wanted to be sure she was actually awake. And she was. We're getting a closer look at the example of chaos that they are causing. The cameraman adjusted the lens, zooming in on the four people. With the closer view, it was clear to see that the blood from the fingers continually seeped out of the cuticles of the three fingers. Their lips were moving, but due to the height of the helicopter, it was impossible for the subtext to be interpreted what they were saying. As they talked, the targeted man began to shout, looking up into the sky, arms coiling into fists. Red liquid oozed from his clenched hands, drizzling onto the road. The lady gently grabbed his arm, shaking her head as tears rolled down her face. The man stood tall, looking at her, fists still shaking. He relaxed his hands. His shoulders lowered, and his face released all tension. He looked at her with wide eyes as he gently touched her face. She smiled at him and held his hand with her own. The three figures took a step closer to the two of them, reaching their hands as far as they could towards the man, causing him to twitch. Their closer presence made him clutch the lady's face with force, causing her to scream. She tried to pull away from him, but was unable to break free. With his free hand, the man curled his hand into a fist, letting out a roar, and slammed it into her face. Christ, Janet said, looking away from the TV. She couldn't dare look at the intense violence. She never did handle it well. She preferred to watch some reality TV for a few chuckles, or spend the night at the pub, maybe get lucky with a man. Violence was disgusting. He won't stop hitting her, Craig exclaimed. The Prime Minister have anything to say about this? I'm not sure. I haven't looked, Candace said. I saw all the chaos and went here to ask if you two had seen anything about it. Janet looked up at the TV again, watching as the man continued to beat the lady who was now on the ground. It really is unexplainable, Matt. We are simply reporting information as it comes. The police are believed to be on their way. The three people on the TV redirected their extended hand away from the man as their lips stopped moving and continued to move down the street. Our respect goes out to this tragic lady's family. Now, why'd he go and do that for, running out in front of the other three? Craig asked. They didn't even touch him, Janet said. Are they using some nanotechnology? Craig snorted. Nanotechnology? This isn't some sort of sci-fi story, Janet. It could be some sort of sound-based hypnosis. Why are their hands bleeding? Janet asked. Can we switch the channel at least? This is making me uncomfortable. Sure, whatever, Candace said with a sigh. The remote is around here somewhere. With all this ruckus business, I'm sure business is going to slow down today after this. That doesn't matter much, I think. Look at what's going on, Craig said. We really rely on the busy season, Craig. As you should know, that is what keeps you employed during the dry seasons. You should be worried. I'm sure I'll be worried tomorrow. Today, I want to know what the hell is going on here. He took a sip of his coffee and said, Can we change the channel to see if there's any other news reports on it? Look for the remote, Candace said. Candace, came a young man's voice from the front desk. Yes, Mark? Candace said with a groan. Janet knew that Candace was testy with questions. Mark was the new guy. He didn't know Candace's wrath yet. He was brave in his naivety. This invoicing software is being funny. Can you come take a look? Mark asked. On my way, Candace said. You two keep working. Don't let that rubbish on the telly distract you, she said before leaving the room. Another beep came from the front entrance. The front door was pulled open. More customers. Perhaps Candace was wrong about the day being quiet. Craig watched as Candace left the room, waiting until she was gone. He spun his chair around to face Janet, saying, "Funny, ain't it?" "What?" Janet asked, while turning to face him. "The boss can come by and chit-chat with us, but when she's gone, it's back to work. That is some history in the making stuff that the news is reporting." He stared at the TV and continued to watch the chaos. Janet looked up for a moment to see the cameraman had shifted the camera to look at the news reporter. "We're getting insight that this is not the first case. There are multiple reports across the country, just like the one we're witnessing below." "Across the country? Are we under attack?" Craig asked, now fiddling with a pencil against his lips. "We should get back to work," Janet said, spinning around to face her desk to look at the graphic software again. A scream erupted from the front entrance, catching both of their attention. The sound of fumbling and toppling items erupted as more grunts, a crash, and then gurgling. Janet stood up, mouth open, while looking at the doorway. It was impossible to see anything other than the walls and the entrance door to the building. "Candace?" Craig called out while getting up from his chair. He looked over at Janet as he walked towards the front entrance. "Stay here," he whispered. Craig crept up to the wall, getting closer to the entrance as more fumbling came from the lobby. He took another step closer, looking back at Janet, then forward, ready to take a peek at the entrance. "Help!" came a man's shout from a worker, possibly from the back room where the printers were. "Somebody, please help! Mark, wait! What? Mark!" A thumping sound came from beyond the office, silencing the worker. Another beat from the front door came, indicating the door was pulled open. Craig swallowed heavily before leaning forward, peeking around the corner, then bringing his head back. "What did you see?" Janet asked. "Nothing. No one is there," Craig said. Janet hurried over to Craig and whispered, "Who was calling for help? Dad?" A scream came from the other room. "Maybe," Craig whispered, "or Daniel. It's hard to tell." "Think this has anything to do with what we heard on the telly?" Janet asked. She knew it was a stupid question. From what they heard, it probably was. She just wasn't sure and wanted reassurance from someone. "I'm going to guess so. Come, let's call the police," Craig said while getting up. He quietly walked over to Janet's desk, the closest to the entrance, and picked up the phone. He punched in the numbers and brought the speaker to his ear. Janet hurried over to Craig, keeping her eyes on the entrance, just in case someone was to come into the room. She couldn't help but wonder what happened out there. "The line is busy," Craig said coldly. "What do you mean?" Janet asked. "I can't get a hold of them." "There's nothing there. We're on our own." Janet felt her heart race. Who yelled from the back room? Who else was in the print shop? Her answers weren't going to be given to her with the rescue of the police. Craig and Janet had to fend for themselves. So, that is part 1 of Listen to Me. Part 2 will come out next month, and we get to see what happens to Craig and Janet in a month's time. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this. As always, please share with your friends if you think this story is fun, and I'll catch you next month. Take care.